All right, so this is the week 1 homework for our next unit, Unit 3 on algebra. So let's take a look here. This is asking us to plug and chug, which is a funny way of saying they want us to substitute the value of a variable. So let's look at our first one. It says x plus 5. They want us to substitute x for 2 and 5/10. 2 and 5/10 plus 5. So they've given us the value, and with that we can solve. So just to be clear, this isn't 3. A lot of people make the mistake that might be 3. And the reason is that 5 is a whole number, and we don't see a decimal. So a saying I read in a high school classroom once was, if the decimal doesn't show its face, it's hiding behind the ones place. So that means that's the ones place, and we would add it to the 2. The 2 and the 5 will make 7 and 5/10. This is called evaluating the expression, right? So here's an expression, and we've discovered that its value is 7 and 5/10. Evaluating. All right, let's take a look at some others here. Something you might want to remember is that this means 5b. Essentially, it means that I have 5 b's added together. So b plus b plus b plus b plus b. But nobody's got time to repeatedly add the same thing, so that's why we invented multiplication. It means 5 times b, so 5 groups of 0 and 25/100. That's multiplication. And of course, this is division. This means 12 divided by y. And in case y is 0 and 4/10, it would look like that. Simply substituting. All right? There is a bit of a typo on this first page here. If we scroll down to the middle, it says here, evaluate the following expressions if a is 2 and b is 5. But in number 2, we see that there's a b, but there's no a. And then there's a y. How can we don't know what y is. That's the typo. This should be the letter a. A divided by 2 minus b. So if we plug these in, we'd end up with something like 2 divided by 2 minus 5. Okay? Great. Let's move on to the next page. Again, we see this word evaluate, right? Evaluate means tell us the value. So tell us the value of 2 times s plus 5 times t when s is 3 and 4/10 and t is 1 and 8/10. So we could simply rewrite this, let me zoom in a little bit here, as 2 times 3.4 plus, right, I'm just copying down the plus sign, plus 5 times 1 and 8/10. And we can use the distributive property to evaluate it, right? So we could say I have 2 times 3, that's 6, and 2 times 4/10, well, that's 8/10. Plus, over here I have 5 times 1, which is 5, and 5 times 8/10. Now that's a little tricky. So 5 times 8/10 would equal 40/10, and I hope you realize that's 4. So let me do a little color coding here. 5 times 8/10 is 4, and 5 times 1 is 5. So together, that makes 9. So 6 and 8/10 plus 9 would come out to have a value of 15 and 8/10. All right, so that's what it means to evaluate. Some of these are a little trickier. That doesn't mean 2/3 times negative 14. It really means 2/3 times x. When x is 60, we might write it like this. 2/3 of 60 minus 14. All right, let's keep looking here. Here, these are something to think about. They're giving us a story, and then they want us to write our own expression. So it says here that Maria has 3 more than twice as many crayons as Elizabeth. It's a little bit confusing, but we want to write an algebraic expression to represent the number of crayons that Maria has. You see for Elizabeth's crayons. So I'm thinking of this like this. It says Maria has, right? It says she has 3 more. So that leads me to believe that we're going to add 3 to something. Right? She has 3 more than twice as many crayons as Elizabeth. Okay, so twice as many might mean something like 2 times the number of crayons as Elizabeth. Let's see, how many does Elizabeth have? Oh, it tells us to use C. So essentially we can say that Mary has, and I'm just going to switch these around a little bit here because we want our variables to come in the beginning. Mary has 2 times as many crayons as Elizabeth, plus 3 extra. Right? So that is our expression, 2C plus 3. Now, we don't know what that equals, right? If we had to write something, we could write it equals Mary's crayons, right? But we don't know because we don't know how many crayons Elizabeth has. In the next problem, it tells us Elizabeth has 12, so we can use our substitution trick. She has twice as many as Elizabeth has. That's 24, and 3 more. So we can tell the value of this now. 24 plus 3 would be 27. Okay. Getting to the last page. Solving, right? So hopefully you did this last year. This is a single-step equation. It says 7 of these A's equal 112. So I might, think of this as 7 things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each one of them is an A. And I know if I add all of these up, I will get 112. But how do I undo that? How do I fix that? Well, one of the things that's really helpful to remember is making your t-chart. This is a multiplication problem with a missing variable. I might divide this side by 7, and that would leave me with just 1A. And I would divide this side by 7, and that would leave me with, I don't know. I got to take 112 and divide it into 7 pieces. So if the diagram doesn't help, hopefully the algebraic t-chart will. So 112 divided by 7. 42, and that leaves me with 6. Each one is a 16. Each A is 16. And I think the remaining problems are very similar, right? We're going to use multiplication and division to solve these equations. Okay, I hope that helps. Remember to ask questions.